The first phase was a great way to not only introduce us to these characters, but to introduce us to this world. We got to know who these characters were, their different personalities, and it was also setting up something bigger. It also offered new opportunities to delve deeper into how the events of the first phase started to change their lives. So slutty ladies and not so gentlemen, to kick off the MCU Phase 2, we begin with Iron Man 3. Released in April of 2013, Iron Man, played once again by Robert Downey Jr., picks up where the Avengers, or Avengers Assemble if you're a fellow Brit, left off, with Tony suffering shell shock after his brush with death in the last movie.
Nothing's been the same since New York. You experience things, and then they're over. I can't sleep. And when I do, I have nightmares.
And to deal with his trauma, he spends his days developing more suits. Unfortunately, a terrorist named the Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley, is causing trouble doing terrorist things.
What a wanker.
And there's another arsehole named Aldrich Killian, played by Guy Pearce, who may not be all that he seems. But when Tony's friend Happy Hogan is caught in the Mandarin attacks, Tony must find the Mandarin and stop him before it's too late. While it doesn't top the first Iron Man, it definitely improves on the second. And once again, Robert Downey Jr. knocks it out of the fucking park. He kills it with the one-liners, he's still convincingly charming, but he still sells the trauma his character is going through. Don Cheadle improves as Rhodey, and there is some real chemistry between him and Downey in the action scenes. The fact that this was directed by Shane Black is obvious, as he knows how to make buddy comedies work.
You see that? Nailed it.
Yeah, you really killed the glass.
Like I was aiming for the bulb. You can't hit a bulb at this distance.
Christ, even the scenes with Tony and the kid is surprisingly moving in a very cynical way.
So, who's home?
My mom already left for the diner and Dad went to 7-Eleven to get scratchers. I guess he won because that was 6 years ago.
Which happens, Dad's leave. No need to be a pussy about it.
And God, as much as I love the action, the scene where Tony has to rescue a bunch of passengers falling from the plane has to be one of my favourite scenes in the movie. And the awesome theme by Tyler Bates only makes it sound more awesome. Unfortunately, there are moments that hold the film back from being really great, like the scene where Tony, furious over the attack on Happy, practically gives his address to a terrorist with no fucking security protocol activated whatsoever. And guess what? His house gets attacked, nearly getting Pepper killed. This was supposed to be a smart guy who was able to build an iron suit in a cave with scraps, and in his home he has more advanced technology to build more powerful weapons. Yet he leaves his home vulnerable, putting his own fucking woman in danger.
You are a wally.
Not only that, the Mandarin is revealed to be just a distraction for the real villain, and as funny as the reveal was, taking one of Iron Man's biggest villains from the comics and reducing him to a joke, and changing him for the much less interesting Killian claiming to be the Mandarin didn't make it better. And no offence to Guy Pearce, but his villain is very flat and generic. And also at the end, Tony has the fucking shrapnel in his heart removed just like that. Why couldn't he have done that in the first movie? Wouldn't that have prevented his fucking drunken wankery in the second? It's such a stupid thing to put in the movie, it almost renders the first two movies pointless. But still, while it wasn't the strongest start to the second phase, it was still a fun movie. The action is cool, it's sharp, and despite being hit and miss at times, I'm always up for rewatching this again. So that was Iron Man 3. Next up, Thor: The Dark World. The first Thor, despite its flaws, managed to be a decent film, thanks to the charm and downright muscle-bound badassery of its lead star Chris Hemsworth. But sadly, just like Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World was a big downgrade from its predecessor. Released in October 2013, Thor: The Dark World picks up where the Avengers left off. with Thor, once again played by Chris Hemsworth, desperately trying to clean up the mess Loki made in all the other realms. And not only that, Loki is to save custody for being such a silly sausage causing trouble in the other realms as well as ours. And to make things worse, Malekith, played by a sadly wasted Christopher Eccleston, is out for a storm powered by cranberry juice.
What is it, your period?
And to make things worse, the Cranberry Stone has entered Jade. So now Thor must return to Jade and keep her safe and hope Malekith doesn't get his stinking hands on her, the damn dirty elf. God, I'm not gonna lie, this fucking movie was such a chore to get through. Yes, Hemsworth and Hiddleston are great in this. Yes, we do see Hemsworth do more hammer slinging. Yes, the final battle is fun with our hero and villain hopping through portals while kicking 10 bells of shit out of each other. But man, you have to put up with a lot of unfunny crap that gain less laughs than a diagnosis for bollock cancer. Especially from Stellan Skarsgård's old man ass and Kat fucking Dennings. The only moments I even got a few chuckles was Loki being a prick.
Brother, you look ravishing.
It will hurt no less when I kill you in this form.
And Thor's warrior friends warning Loki not to betray Thor.
You even think about betraying him?
I'll kill you. That was from New York.
I like her.
Also, what the fuck happened to Odin? The guy seemed like a very wise, honourable character, and I know his wife is killed, but damn, to turn him into such a bloodthirsty, irrational psycho felt so far from the character we saw in the first film.
A wise king never seeks out war, but he must always be ready for it.
And how are you different from Malekith?
The difference, my son, is that I will win.
Can you smell that? What is that? Sheep, is it? It's cows? No, I know what it is. It's bullshit.
Speaking of which, Thor's mum, played by top gilf Rene Russo, gets killed, and it's really not as hard-hitting as the movie makes it out to be. Christ, we were never even given enough moments to care for her in both movies, so why should we care now? And worse, Christopher Eccleston looks fucking bored in this role, and it pisses me off to see a really good actor given a shit role with nothing to work with. Sorry Chris, loved you in Doctor Who though. And there's really nothing else I can go on about. Overall, it's boring, mostly unfunny, a waste of talent, and it definitely misses the mark. So that was Thor, the Dull World. Next up, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. So after the fun but flawed Iron Man 3 and the dull Thor, the Dark World, this was a nice surprise. Released in March 2014, Captain America the Winter Soldier picks up after the events of the Avengers, where Captain America, played by Chris Evans, has been cleaning up for S.H.I.E.L.D., but after Nick Fury is taken out of the picture, he finds out S.H.I.E.L.D. has secretly been a front for Hydra all along. And worse, an assassin named the Winter Soldier is running around taking out anyone Hydra deems a problem. So with Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson again, and the Falcon, played by Papa Doc himself, Anthony Mackie, it's up to them and Captain America to take down Hydra once and for all. Man, talk about exceeding expectations. I was expecting this to be a serviceable entry in the series, but it turned out to be not just the best in the phase, but maybe one of the best comic book movies in general. This made me really admire the character of Captain America even more. Yes, he's a big blue Boy Scout and lacks the charm of Tony Stark and the intensity of Hulk, but having an old school, good-hearted man out of town, being thrust into a morally grey modern setting, leading him to question his principles, was definitely a smart move to take story-wise.
Thought the punishment usually came after the crime.
S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world as it is, not as we'd like it to be.
This isn't freedom. This is fear.
Chris Evans only gets better in the role and does a great job making you sympathise with him, and he really does come across as a guy who has to deal with the fact his friends and family have long gone. Oh wait, Agent Carter's still around. Oh wait, she's really old, bedridden and suffering, and her mind is going. And I'm not gonna lie, this scene where Steve Rogers goes to visit Peggy Carter and she's old and bedridden and senile is a genuine tearjerker.
You're alive. You came back. It's been so long. So long.
Well, I couldn't leave my best girl. Not when she owes me a dance.
Man, this movie knows how to tug on the heartstrings. Not only that, the stakes are high, taking its cue from great conspiracy theory classics like 3 Days in the Condor, The Manchurian Candidate, even classic spy thrillers, like this scene where Rogers and Romanoff are being hunted and have to keep hidden in plain sight.
Kiss me.
What?
Public displays of affection make people very uncomfortable.
Yes, they do.
You lucky bastard! You lucky bastard!
He's so uncomfortable?
In fact, Scarlett Johansson gets better as Black Widow. And looking better, I might add. We get to see her evolve more as a character, trying to come to terms with her past mistakes, and even realising all the good she thought she was doing was a lie. But she still manages to put aside her personal demons in order to help Steve Rogers prevent any more innocents from being harmed. Anthony Mackie makes a nice addition as the Falcon, and him and Evans do work well with each other. I love that scene of their first meeting, and listening to them share their experiences as veterans and how they are dealing with their current situations.
It's your bed, right?
What's that?
Your bed is too soft. When I was over there, I sleep on the ground, use rock for pillows like a caveman. Now I'm home, lying in my bed, and it's like...
Lying on a marshmallow. I feel like I'm gonna sink right to the floor.
God, remember when Marvel actually cared about making us care about their characters? Sebastian Stan gets even more chance to shine as Bucky, who despite surviving his fall in the first Captain America movie, has been brainwashed by Hydra and has been used as a weapon to assassinate anyone who poses a threat to his employers. And there is a real sense of tragedy. Seeing Roger's best friend turn into his enemy does lead to a very emotional moment in the climax.
I'm not gonna fight you. You're my friend. You're my mission. Then finish it. Because I'm with you to the end of the line.
The action, despite some dodgy shaky cam, is still hard-hitting with some cool hand-to-hand combat, and the movie is really fucking intense. Unfortunately, Robert Redford's Alexander Pierce comes off a bit generic, but it's still one of Marvel's most mature outings. It's a gritty, dark, high-octane action thriller that builds tension and will keep you gripped from start to finish. All in the name of...
America.
So that was Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Next up, the Guardians of the Galaxy. Man, who would have thought a movie based on a bonkers sci-fi comic series barely recognised by probably 95% of the entire population, I'm guessing, could charm its way into the hearts of any stone-hearted normies? And what movie am I talking about? Well, slutty ladies and not-so-gentlemen, the movie I am talking about is none other than The Guardians of the Galaxy. Released in July 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy starts off with a young boy named Peter Quill, who after witnessing his mum dying of cancer, gets abducted by aliens. Fast forward 30 years later, Peter Quill is now an outlaw called Star-Lord, who lands on a planet to snatch an orb, Unfortunately, a bunch of heavily armed bastards show up to ruin his day. Thankfully, Quill manages to evade them, but it turns out these guys work for a guy called Ronan, played by Lee Pace, a powerful, boring fanatic who works for an intergalactic tyrant named Thanos, played by Josh Brolin, who also wants the orb for his own personal gain. So Thanos sends sexy green bitch Gamora, played by Zoe Saldana.
You got to be a horny motherfucker to fuck a green bitch.
To track down Quill and take the orb from him. But unfortunately, there's also a couple of bounty hunters out to collect the price on Quill's head. One is a wisecracking gun-toting raccoon named Rocket, played by Bradley Cooper, and the other a tree named Groot, played by Vin Diesel. But it all goes tits up, they get arrested and sent to a maximum prison, where they meet an inmate named Drax, played by Dave Bautista, who is out for revenge against Ronan, and after a few disagreements, they talk things through and decide to help each other escape, in the hopes of selling the orb and making a load of money split between them. But will they succeed in doing so before Ronan and Gamora's sexy sister Nebula, played by sexy Ginge Minge Karen Gillan, get to them? When the first few stills came out about this film, I was wondering, what the fuck is this film about? But it wasn't until the first trailer dropped I started to get excited. It looked fun, had a sense of humour, and didn't look like it took itself too seriously. And guess what? The film actually was fun, had a sense of humour, and didn't take itself too seriously. But it also had a lot more heart than it made itself out to be, and that was all down to the smart writing, colourful characters, and the performances of the actors involved. Chris Pratt showed there was more to him than the funny fat guy in Parks and Recs, and here he rocks as Star-Lord, a tough, capable outlaw, able to adapt and keep a cool head in any situation, while also being distant, childish and selfish. But as his journey progresses, he starts to develop into a more brave, selfless human being. The rest of the characters are also memorable. Dave Bautista brings the deadpan laughs as Drax, a mean, tough, humourless meathead, but he is still sympathetic enough to make me feel the loss he has suffered. Zoe Saldana is okay as Gamora, who's out to betray Thanos, and she does end up proving to be the moral backbone of the group. Michael Rooker is also fun to watch as Yondu, and the recurring joke of him reminding Quill that his guys wanted to eat him adds layers to their relationship while also being funny.
When I picked you up on Terra, these boys of mine wanted to eat you.
Yeah?
They ain't never tasted any Terran before. I stopped them. You're alive cause of me.
There's awesome cameos from Peter Serafinowicz, Glenn Close, John C. Reilly, but it's Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel that steal the show as Rocket Raccoon and Groot. God damn, I love these fucking two. Rocket is a smart-ass, gun-toting raccoon with a penchant for blowing shit up and stealing people's limbs. And Groot, while not the sharpest of blades, does bring real heart to the movie, and I can't help but smile seeing these two work together to fuck shit up. I love Rocket's childish need to steal artificial limbs, and I love how Groot comes across innocent, even when he's being incredibly fucking bloodthirsty and violent. But that's not to say the rest of the film doesn't compare. In fact, the film never fails to provide the laughs as well as the ass-kicking action, but they still manage to bring a tragedy to these characters, something that brings real emotion to the goofiness. These are characters broken by their past, driven to anger, selfishness and bitterness, but through their time spent together, we see them develop, learn the value of friendship and self-sacrifice.
No, Groot. You can't. You'll die. Why are you doing this? Why?
We are Groot.
It's as heartfelt as it is funny, and damn, this film really does hit hard. And apart from the witty dialogue, the special effects, visuals and designs of these worlds are stunning to look at while also immersing you in its surrealness. Sadly, it still has its issues. Ronan is a fucking bore, and the sibling rivalry between Gamora and Nebula doesn't feel as impactful as it should. but thankfully that relationship becomes more fleshed out in the second instalment. But overall, it's a funny, exciting, emotional sci-fi caper with a rocking soundtrack and charming characters. It's one of my favourites, and out of all the MCU movies, this is the Kevin Bacon of them all. So that was the Guardians of the Galaxy. Next up, Avengers: Age of Ultron. The first Avengers movie had a lot to live up to after 50 years worth of comic books. Thankfully, it paid off. It was fun, witty, exciting, and watching these characters we got to know in their own movies interact with each other was enjoyable and left us excited for more. So could lightning strike twice? Let's find out with Avengers: Age of Ultron. Released in April 2015, Avengers: Age of Ultron picks up some time where Captain America the Winter Soldier left off, where the Avengers finally get off their asses and reunite to deal with Hydra like they should have done at the end of Winter Soldier. And in doing so, they end up crossing paths with a couple of their experiments, legally not called Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, both played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen, which leads to Tony Stark, once again played by Robert Downey Jr., being man-fucked by not Scarlet Witch, Wanda. And through her manipulation, he sees a vision where the Avengers have been killed and the army they took on last time is taking over the Earth.
You could have saved us.
And for some reason he comes to the conclusion that he should create an artificial intelligence program in order to protect the world. Yeah, because if there's one thing we've learned from the Terminator, is that something like that never goes tits up. But guess what? It goes tits up. Nice one, Tony.
What a 42-carat plonker you really are!
So now the Avengers have to put a stop to Ultron before he destroys humanity. Yeah, for a smart guy, Tony Stark really seems to be making mistakes so obvious that even a dumbass like me is calling it out as a bad idea. And while it doesn't top the first Avengers, there are still some good qualities that stop this from being a total disaster. The cast once again still have great chemistry, seeing them interact together is still fun, and if I'm being honest, if the entire film was just them chilling out, I would still be fine with that because they're so fucking charming, and you can see the actors really look like they're enjoying themselves. Even Hawkeye, played again by Jeremy Renner, improves as a character. There's a part in the movie where the Avengers have almost been destroyed mentally, and is taken to a farm owned by Hawkeye in an effort to lie low and recover. And seeing Hawkeye revealed to be just a humble family man just made me like him more. I even like how he reacts to the more ridiculous moments, like a real guy, while still inspiring his buddies to grow some balls and kick some ass.
I let this happen.
Hey, you okay?
This is all our fault.
Hey, look at me. It's your fault. It's everyone's fault. Who cares? Are you up for this? Are you? Look, I just need to know because the city is flying. Okay, look, the city is flying. We're fighting an army of robots. And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense. But I'm going back out there because this is my job. Okay, and I can't do my job and babysit. Doesn't matter what you did, what you were. If you go out there, you fight, and you fight to kill. Stay in here, you're good. I'll send your brother to come find you, but if you step out that door, you are an Avenger.
Such a man. I'd follow him to hell and back, I would.
In fact, the moments where the Avengers are manipulated does add more layers to the characters. We see Captain America haunted by the life he wished he had, Thor seeing his people destroyed, Black Widow reliving her violent childhood, while also having Banner lose control to the Hulk. Stuff like this is almost what makes this movie still worthy of some praise, and you can see the people behind this still cared about these characters. You know, before these monstrosities destroyed the franchise. The one-liners are still funny, the action is still fun, and once again, the characters are what makes this watchable. And the last conversation Vision, played by Paul Bettany, has with Ultron, played by David Spade, is one of the more deeper moments in the movie. Unfortunately, it does fall short due to David Spade being reduced to playing a typical villain who must destroy humanity because humanity is a danger to themselves. And the overuse of one-liners does start to grate, especially during the more serious scenes. When the fuck was it even established in the others that Hulk and Black Widow were a thing? Also, since Ultron can pretty much hack into the system, why didn't he launch a bunch of nukes on the world instead of resorting to this convoluted crap with the vibranium? It's not as great as the first, but I still give it credit for at least trying to progress the characters more. While it doesn't top the heights of the original, this still manages to soar high enough. So that was Avengers Age of Ultron and the end of Phase 2. Wait, what? Ant-Man is the end of Phase 2? Are you fucking serious? Okay, makes more sense to end on the Avengers, but hey, I didn't make the fucking movies, did I? So, next up, end of Phase 2, Ant-Man. Batman dresses like a bat, lives in the shadows, fights crime at night. Spider-Man spins webs, climbs walls, and swings from buildings. When we get Ant-Man, he shrinks. Released in July 2015, Ant-Man tells the story of hacker and burglar Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, who was recently released from prison and hopes to go straight. Unfortunately, his criminal past prevents him from gaining employment, while also preventing him from seeing and supporting his daughter. So in desperation, he turns to his criminal friends, who tip him off about a score, only for the score to be a suit, which leads to Lang being arrested. It turns out, it was all deliberately planned by a scientist named Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, who wants Lang to help him steal an experimental serum that could be used as a weapon by his former protege, Darren Cross, played by Corey Stoll. But the only way to achieve this plan is for Lang to master the shrinking powers sort of thing of the suit.
My days of breaking into places and stealing stuff are over. What do you want me to do?
I want you to break into a place and steal some stuff.
Makes sense.
Ant-Man is definitely a superhero name that sounds like a joke, but in all honesty, it turned out to be better than it had any right to. It's not perfect, nothing special, but it had a fun energy, and the cast do make it work. Paul Rudd is likeable as Scott Lang, a man in over his head, but willing to risk his life in the hopes of redeeming himself in the eyes of his daughter. Michael Douglas adds gravitas as the original Ant-Man Pym, who, like Lang, is trying desperately to right the past mistakes that's almost destroyed him. Evangeline Lilly is okay as Hope, and while starting off flaky, she does show some vulnerability. And I'm not gonna lie, I so wish I was in Lang's shoes here.
You lucky bastard!
Here, Michael Pena brings a goofball charm as Lang's oldest friend Louise, as well as some decent support from Damon Malchin and T.I. While it might not be as epic as the Avengers, I do like the Ocean's 11 style vibe the movie brings. Seeing something more smaller and scaled back seemed like a nice bit of fresh air, and it brought a nice fun twist to the franchise. The fact this is a heist movie where the person has to shrink down in order to pull it off does lead to some very funny creative moments that help the actors work off each other. Not only that, the shrinking also led to some very creative and funny action scenes that seem big, intense and bombastic up close until it zooms out to look more pathetic from a normal person's point of view. Like this scene where they fight on the Thomas the Tank Engine. There's some fun montages, and the fact that this is about two men with regrets trying to repair their broken relationships with their daughters does bring some emotional weight amongst the craziness. But once again, we get a very dull villain, and I know Corey Stoll is a good actor, but he still comes across flat. And it's kind of a shame, as I like the idea that he was almost like a surrogate son to Hank Pym, that Hank grew to dislike because of how he saw too much of himself in him. And as good as Michael Douglas is, he seems to spend the majority of his screen time dumping exposition. Not only that, this was originally going to be directed by Edgar Wright, but after learning it was going to be changed to be more connected to the MCU, he jumped ship, leaving Peyton Reed to take over as director. And while he does a decent job incorporating Wright's style, it's obvious this film would have been stronger with Edgar Wright himself in full creative control. But still, while it's nothing special, this is still a decent caper that, despite its tiny hero, still manages to be big on both the laughs and heart. So that was Ant-Man, and also the end of MCU Phase 2. Yeah, it started off a little dodgy, but eventually it found its way again, evolving its characters while also taking more chances exploring more of this universe, while also making more obscure characters a household name. So would the third phase improve on the first two phases? We'll find that out later, starting with Captain America Civil War.